Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of History Quest. This month we're going to take a little break from our County Parks segment, and I'm going to read you a story about a Plato fire, plus bring you a new installment that's going to bring the facts to McLeod County. So stay tuned, grab some popcorn, a drink, and we'll see you in a bit. It was a soft autumn evening, and a stiff southerly breeze wafted across Plato, Minnesota. It was 5 p.m., and the good people of the community were just beginning to settle down. Stores were closing for the day, or would soon be doing so. Buggies pulled along by horses were rolling down the dirt streets in town, and meals were being prepared in the homes on the community's outskirts. On the south end of town, atop the Hastings and Dakota Railroad track, sat a long westbound freight train. The train had a heavy load to pull, and in Plato it was unloading a bit of cargo. In those days, the trains were pulled by large black steam engines that were fueled by wood, or more commonly coal. Tasked with pulling a heavy load, the fire in the firebox would have to be stoked hot with fuel before taking off. With a shovel in hand and soot on his brow, the train's firemen shoveled copious amounts of coal into the firebox until the glowing inferno was such that the train could now be powered. With its bell ringing and black smoke curling towards the sky, the freight train began moving westward toward Glencoe, where it would drop off its next load. The engine began to chug, puffing smoke and steam from its chimney. Suddenly, and without warning, a large ember glowing red was spat upward from the engine's smokestack. It flew through the sky, then descended on the cedar-shingled roof of the Empire Elevator building. As the train slowly rolled out of town, the shingles around the ember began to smolder. It didn't take long for the breeze to turn the dry shingles into a smoking, smoldering bed of coal. Before long, the roof had caught fire. In what seemed like moments, the Strong and Miller elevator, too, had caught fire, and in no time at all, the strong wind blew the heat and coals across the narrow street and started an entire block on fire. Buildings in those days were made of wood and were built near one another. The hot, tickling flames from the fire spread from building to building with little effort. The townspeople, by this time, were well aware of the situation and worked frantically to fight the fire. But it was appearing to be a losing battle, like a prairie fire spreading across a wind-swept and drought-stricken field. The last hope for the town were the fire departments of Glencoe and Norwood, where the alarm had already been sounded. Firefighters from both towns, aboard horse-pulled fire carts, raced to meet at Plato, where the inferno was burning out of control. By the time they arrived, it was nearly too late. Most of the downtown business block was engulfed in flames. At this time, it was decided by both departments to abandon fighting the fire and concentrate their efforts on saving the remainder of the town. This they did, with Glencoe working on the west end of town and Norwood on the east. Though much of the downtown was destroyed, the fire was contained to the one block. When it was over, only 2 buildings were left standing. Fires were a regular evil in those days. Most buildings were made of wood and heated by burning wood, coal, or oil. Unfortunately for Plato, another fire would spread just 4 years down the road, yet never as bad as the famous fire of 1896, one which went down in history and is still talked about to this day. Well, that was our fire story. I came across that in the archives in the museum and I just really wanted to share it with you. So I hope you enjoyed it. And now, it's time for the facts. In a world of fake news, where the facts are sometimes altered, we bring you the undeniable truth with Brian Haynes. Hello, America. Well, it's another fall. It's an election year. By the time some of you are watching this, we're going to know who our president is. We're going to know who's in our Senate. We're going to know who's in the House. We're going to know who our mayors are. We're going to know who our council members are. It's a crazy year, with COVID, with the social unrest, defund the police, defend the police. I think a lot of people don't know what to think anymore. I, for one, don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what to believe anymore. The only thing that I know is fact, is history. And let's be honest, folks. Judging by the way the narratives are spun today, I don't even know if history is fact anymore. What I can tell you, though, is that me and my team have been diligent in trying to find the facts and trying to bring them to you. So, without further ado, here's some history facts for you. We're going to start out with the dollar bill. Everybody loves a few bucks in their pocket, right? I know I do. And of course, we all know that it's George Washington's face that appears on the $1 bill. That wasn't always the case forever, as the nation's first president did not always grace the $1 bill. In fact, it didn't appear on the $1 bill until 1869. And that is the undeniable truth. The first $1 bill was issued in 1862 during the Civil War. Salmon P. Chase, that's right, you heard that right. He was Secretary of the Treasury at that time, and he designed the nation's first $1 bill. Because of this, Chase decided to put his own face on that first dollar bill. And for 7 years, that was your $1 bill. Until somebody decided, this is our first $1 bill. Let's put our first president on it. Makes sense to me. Doesn't it make sense to you? But that is the story behind the $1 bill, and that is the undeniable truth. Next up, you might have heard of Johnny Appleseed. Maybe you saw the Disney cartoon when you were a kid of the guy wearing a pot backwards on his head. Or it wasn't backwards, it was just normal, and then the handle stuck out the front of his forehead. It was cute. And he walked around and he planted apple seeds everywhere he went. I don't know if you know this, but that is based on a real person. Maybe he wasn't quite as cartoon looking as the Disney version of Johnny Appleseed. But he was true. He was real. Personally, I think there's nothing better than the taste of an apple, right out of the tree. You can buy them at the store, but they're just not the same. Not the same as if you're in your yard or on a farm or in an orchard and you pluck a big, juicy red apple out of the tree. I mean, really, is there anything more American than that red apple grown in our soil, eaten by our people, made into American apple pie? I like it. I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. I like it. Well, when it comes to the folk hero, Johnny Appleseed, the happy-go-lucky man who wore the pot and wandered the countryside, randomly planting apple trees, well, like I said before, he was a real man. His name was John Chapman. And he was an apple orchardist, which meant that he went around and he planted apple orchards. Traveled around the eastern states and planted nurseries everywhere that he went. He'd plant the trees, he'd build fences around the trees, and then once it was established, he'd nurse it along, get them established, and once they were established, he'd sell them. Hey, sounds pretty American to me, right? You do the work, and then you make some money off of it. It's my dream. I don't know if it's your dream or not, but it's my dream. Well, anyway, he was known for his threadbare clothes. He did not wear shoes, or didn't like to wear shoes. I imagine if it got cold enough, Johnny Appleseed probably had to put a pair of shoes on, or at least strap some extra warm socks on his feet. I don't know. I didn't live at that time, so I couldn't tell you. But he was known for walking barefoot and wearing threadbare clothes, just like in the Disney version of Johnny Appleseed. On his side note, And this is kind of interesting, and this is the undeniable truth. Most of his orchards were used to make homemade alcohol. So unfortunately, during Prohibition, when the United States government deemed that alcohol should be illegal, most of the orchards that Johnny Appleseed had planted that were, a century old were cut down. It's said, though, however, that one tree still exists today, and that is in Nova, Ohio. I've seen pictures of it. I think there's pictures of it. You can Google it. You'll probably find pictures of it. I guess I can't attest to whether or not it still produces apples, but apparently it still does exist. So there is one tree left. But so that's the story of Johnny Appleseed. Undeniably true that this man did exist. Being that it is an election year, I found some truth about one of our former presidents, Zachary Taylor. You may or may not have heard about him. And you may be getting tired of hearing about American presidents, but, here's one more to annoy you. He was the 12th president of the United States and a former major general. Zachary Taylor was known wide for his exploits in the U.S.-Mexican War. In 1849, he was elected president, but he only served for 16 months. He died while he was in office. On the 4th of July, they had a big celebration, just like we do today. We always have a celebration on the 4th of July. This was in 1850. Taylor consumed large amounts of raw cherries and iced milk, or iced cream. They called it iced milk. There's a little bit of a difference, I guess, but I wouldn't know it if I looked at it. Anyway, so iced milk, raw cherries, regular milk, and water, and he gorged himself on it. It was a celebration. What's wrong with that? In the days to follow, he became gravely ill, and he eventually died. His doctors were confused. This is 1850. Medicine wasn't what it was today. You really have to put yourself in that mindset. They didn't know what it was. They blamed it on cholera. Modern physicians, however, who have studied this case, attribute Taylor's death to gastroenteritis. Gastroenteritis? Did I get that right? They don't know. None of us know, I guess. Look it up, Google it, let me know. At any rate, it's a condition caused by large quantities of highly acidic fruit and fresh milk. So basically, the 12th president of the United States died from eating too much. So here's one more about a president. You've probably heard about America's 7th president, Andrew Jackson. To this day, he can be a little bit of a controversial figure. However, he was elected president. He was rough around the edges, let's just say that. Maybe like our current president, a little rough around the edges. He was a soldier. He's famous for his exploits in the War of 1812, specifically with the Battle of New Orleans. If you're not familiar with the Battle of New Orleans, Johnny Horton wrote a great song about it. Or you can Google it. Google's a great thing. In this modern world of our, Google is a great thing, even though sometimes the facts you find on Google are not the undeniable truth. At any rate, Jackson was not a politician. I can't stress that enough. Jackson was a soldier. He was a good old boy. He was not a politician. He favored taking power from political elites, placing it in the hands of ordinary people. I think today, what do we call that? Draining the swamp is what they're calling it today. At any rate, back in Jackson's day, it looks like he was trying to drain the swamp as well, or at least told everybody he was going to drain the swamp. And take that however you want. This is not meant to be a biased show. He wanted power in the hands of ordinary people. People like you and me. The people who really run this world, who run our country, who make our economy. You and me. At any rate, he was also brash. He was very quick to speak his mind, and he could be vulgar at times. That was actually one of the traits you'll hear a lot about Jackson. If you study him, Jackson was not afraid to say it like it is and to use curse words while he did it. He did have a pet parrot. Not everybody knows this. A lot of people have pets. A lot of people come into the White House, they'll have a dog, they'll have a cat. I guess I don't know what our current president has. what he will have or what our new president will have, whichever way it goes. I imagine they'll have some sort of pet. If you're president, I guess you have to have a pet. At any rate, Jackson had a parrot. And as parrots are apt to do, they mimic their owners or the person that's talking a lot. Well, since Jackson swore like a sailor, so did his parrot. The bird's name, of course, was Polly, because if you're going to have a parrot, I guess you have to name it Polly, right? I mean, I guess I'd name it Polly. You know, Polly, you want a cracker? Polly, you want to go fly around the room? I don't know. I don't have a parrot. But if I did, I'd name it Polly, just like Jackson. Well, at any rate, Polly mimicked his owner. And unlike most owners, Jackson swore. Polly swore. Well, Polly outlived Jackson. And they said that during Jackson's funeral, they had the pet in the room. The only problem was the parrot, during the funeral, while everybody's gathered there to view the remains of the president, to pay their last respects, you have this parrot in the corner of the room, swearing like a sailor. Well, you guessed it, they had to remove the parrot because it was just inappropriate. And that, my friends, is the undeniable truth. See you next month. Well, that was our episode for this month. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to give you a little bit of news about what's going on down at the museum. As you know, because of COVID, we've been open, but we haven't been holding any real programming or fundraising. We will be holding our annual meeting on December 14th at 1:30 p.m. And we're not going to have any snacks or any speaker or anything like this year. It's just going to be a straight business meeting. You know, just due to the climate right now with the COVID and everything. So if you can make it, great. If not, we'll hope to see you at next year's annual meeting. Other than that, some big news. We did a little bit of landscaping on the south side of the building, so you can finally see that nice mural we have over there. So if you're driving by, make sure you take a look. Also, and this is really exciting, in our Steffelwing edition, we are actually building a timber-framed barn. This thing is going to be 12 feet deep and it's going to be 30 feet long, and it's peaked up, top of the peak is 12 feet. It's all done with 4x6 timber framing where they pound the pegs in and everything. So this is really neat. We got tin on the roof. We're doing board and batten siding, you know, and it's all aged wood, and this thing is going to be really cool. Probably the coolest thing down at the museum. So, you know, make sure you check back in regularly for this thing. Also, you might be interested to learn that we've got a book coming out, and this is a book of my columns that I've written for the Hutch Leader and for the McLeod County Enterprise. It's a collection of them. There's 50 of them, and there's a few that have never been published in there, so, you know, it's a nice little surprise for you. But this should be available before Christmas, so stay tuned for that too, and make sure you grab, you know, like 1, 2, 5, 10 copies to hand out, put in your stocking stuffers and everything. So look forward to that as well. Other than that, that's all we have for you this month, so we hope to see you again next month. We might be out at the county park. We're not sure quite yet, but I can tell you one thing, we'll have more of the undeniable truth for you.